Today, we have a very renowned actor, director, Mr. Anish Kuruvilla, sir, with us. I'm really excited for this podcast. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Looking forward to talking to you.
So, sir, where did all this journey start from, sir? I've been seeing movies since childhood, and you've been there in a lot of movies. So, how did this all start, sir, for you?
It's hard to pin it down, but I think back in school I was involved in theater quite a bit. And that early exposure to theater, where I was acting, writing, directing plays in Ravindra Bharati, which is quite the institution here in Hyderabad, that sort of definitely left a deep impression in me. But then growing up, one I kind of got sidelined, and I sort of like every other kid in Hyderabad, was pursuing what an academic career. Uh, but in college, I kind of was drifting a bit, and I wasn't really focused on what I was studying, and I that's when I started kind of asking myself what it is I want to do. And I just remember all the times that I had a lot of fun in school, and it was whenever there was theater and dramatics involved. So I think in college is when I decided that right after I'm done with college, I have to find a way to get into the industry, and I think I began to really focus on it by the end of the first year of my college. I was studying political science in Nizam College, and I spent the next 2 years just doing some real deep research into cinema. Obviously, we're talking about the period between 95 and 97, so it was sort of like the pre-internet era. So when one sort of sets their minds into cinema, your only resources are cinemas being exhibited around you and books. So I was lucky that there was that cultural sort of period of time in Hyderabad where Max Miller Bhavan, Alliance Francois, Harihara Kala Bhavan, the Hyderabad Film Club, where on a weekly basis uh, screening foreign films. And of course, I was my college itself is surrounded by theaters all over. So I kind of dove into cinema, a combination of just attending these screenings and watching every movie around me, and diving into any kind of book I could find about cinema and reading it. And by the time I was ready to graduate from college, I knew that I had to break into the industry somehow, and that's sort of how it all kind of started.
Did the drama classes play a role in this, sir? What you had learned in drama in your schooling days, have they played any role?
Oh yeah, significant. Like I think when I found myself being really lost in college and not really sort of in line with what everyone was doing. Our course was such that everyone would be really focused on their civil service exams and stuff like that. And I found myself being very disinterested and disillusioned really. And I was trying to recall what actually made me happy, and it was all those moments that I spent, I think from second grade right up to the ninth grade. We had a very active theater school, theater uh, course in school. And all my happy memories were attached to that. And it was a very impromptu sort of kind of an affair. There were times when the teacher wouldn't be available, and the students had to kind of write their own plays and perform their own plays. And I found that nobody in this class really took initiative, and it was just me who was constantly thinking about, okay, what do we write for today's theater session? And I would come up with an idea over lunch, and I would just rehearse it with my friends, pick a couple of them, cast them, do a quick rehearsal, and we just go on stage and kind of enact a play that was just literally born like a couple of hours before that. So in college I was thinking about what made me happy, and I realized that this is the pursuit of something in cinema uh, is where my sort of heart really belonged. And I actually owe it to my theater experience in school. for me to kind of end up here, actually.
So, sir, then what was your first film? What you worked on?
So I didn't start off working in cinema directly. I worked with a advertising and corporate house, Manishankar,
Yes.
and he ran a company called Bhairav Films. And at the time when I joined him, they were making music videos. So my first foray into cinema per se was through music videos, and these were music videos being made to celebrate 50 years of Indian independence. And I got really lucky because Mr. Manishankar at that time was making videos with Lucky Ali, Baba Saigal, uh, Dr. L. Subramaniam, Mr. Ilayaraja, Vishal Bharadwaj, all these thespians at their, top of their field. And I got to be a part of that creative process. So it began like that, where I started off with a very music video sort of a background, and that slowly kind of transitioned into corporate films. But my heart ultimately kind of lay in cinema, and I think the turning point was a couple of years later when Nagesh Kukunur's Hyderabad Blues was released. And if you might have to go back in history, 25 years, 27 years now, Hyderabad Blues was an iconic film because nobody had made an independent Indian English film, featuring an all-Indian cast, where the primary mode of communication or the language in the film was a mixture of English and a little bit of Hyderabadi Hindi, and it was self-funded. Was made for very little money over a short span of days, and it was a breakout film of in '97. That really kind of opened my eyes to anything can you can tell stories like this also. Was that bulb that kind of went off in my head, because up until then you would think that cinema was that convention of six songs and fights, and you had to have a star. And so Hyderabad Blues kind of defied all those stereotypes, and I got lucky. I got working with Nagesh Kukunur right after Hyderabad Blues. So Rockford was a film that Nagesh was directing, and that was my first film as an AD. Yeah.
How did your parents react to this, sir?
Like any South Indian middle class parents, uh, they weren't really happy with my decision to get into cinema. They were concerned, but I was lucky that they decided to kind of wait and see. And I think when they began seeing that I was quite happy and very driven by what it is I was doing, they gave me a little bit more of leeway. And it took a few years for them to kind of come around to it, because it was, for those times or for any time, even today also. Today, maybe not as much because there is much more exposure to media and cinema. But back then, it wouldn't seem like a viable sort of profession. So I think they've kind of come around to it finally. And I think, yeah, these are, I think that's one of the things that drove me also, because I kind of felt like, I had this pressure of kind of being able to prove to family and relatives and society at large that I was making such an alternative kind of career choice. Um, so I think it instilled in me a sort of work ethic and a certain kind of commitment that I kind of I became a very self-driven person, because see, this is an industry. Uh, I think you excel the more self-motivated you are, because it is an it is an entrepreneurial kind of like an industry. It's a place where you have to create your own opportunities. I mean, you're as good as the last piece of work you've done, but the only way you can keep going is if you kind of manifest projects for yourself and constantly work towards telling stories. So it needs a certain kind of spirit. It's not the kind of profession where you can sit back knowing your monthly salary is going to be deposited, or a year later you're going to get a promotion. It doesn't work that way at all. So it's also an industry that kind of steals you and makes you kind of you are sensitive, you become very sensitive, I think, to society at large and human beings at large. I think the nature of a director is such that, if you're eking out stories and characters, you kind of want to really stay in touch and relevant with what's happening around you. But at the same time, when you experience failures, it also it's a great leveler. There are these wild ups and downs in the industry. So uh, when you have those kind of experiences in your journey as a filmmaker, it kind of changes you. It changes your perception of how you don't kind of take things for granted. you know so everybody reacts to these experiences differently. I think it's formed me into a very sensitive kind of an individual who's quite driven by what it is he sets out to do. Yeah.
So this does affect your personal life. Let's
Well,
see.
cinema, I always say that cinema is not just a profession, it's a way of life. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have a personal life or you can't have family, or, but it can be challenging, for you to be able to take time out and kind of really focus uh, on raising a family. So I made a choice very early on that getting married and having children is not something for me. So it's uh, not that I'm against it or anything like that, but it's something that wouldn't be able to sort of would I don't think I have uh, that room in my life, because cinema is an all-consuming sort of an affair. So yeah, it does have effects, but there are lots of people who've been able to balance having a wonderful family life as well as being focused on their profession. I'm just not one of them.
I went for an acting course in
Okay.
Bombay, and they were trying to get me into a role. So what I learned was in our school back in the day that if you want to be a director, you have to know what an actor goes through. You have to get them into a role and bring them out of the role. So
Mm,
as a director or as an actor, was it challenging for you to get them into the role or get yourself into the role and then to get yourself out of it? Like, how hard was it? And did that really affect your personal life? Because I remember my time when
mm,
I had to come out of a role, it took me days, it took me weeks to come out of that role.
mm.
And it really affected me for that brief time. So,
Right.
did you ever face such challenges, sir, or do you still do, or do you see this out there?
Yeah, I think these experiences are different for different people. I think as an actor, one does need to prepare and be focused on their role. But I also have the ability to kind of switch off once my job is done and I'm back home. So I don't kind of carry the character with me. Um, I'm also yet to play so many more varied characters. So I'm sure, I mean, there have been a couple of projects where, I have had to be, uh, I would say you have to be, it has to do with emotion, like at the end of the day. So if I'm playing somebody who's filled with rage or something like that, it's very important for me to kind of stay in emotion for that extended period of time. So that can get a little challenging, but I've always found it easy to kind of switch off also when job is done and the lights are off and it's pack up for the day. I leave the actor behind. But my insight and my experience as an actor has definitely helped me as a director, because when I'm directing an actor, or when I'm having a conversation with them, or when I meet them on the set, I have an idea of what it is they might be thinking about or how they might be feeling. You know, an actor goes through a lot of anxiety from the moment he's up and about in the morning and getting ready to, headed to work, and as he gets into his costume. I understand that, some things like just the costume fitting you really well is very important for you to even feel like you can perform. Having your lines in advance, having a good idea or a clear idea of what it is that you're being asked to do. These are things that an actor really wants to kind of get from a director. So when I'm working with an actor, I feel like I can understand what it is that they're going through, and I'm able to kind of have a closer conversation with them, and I'm I'm able to kind of because actors are sensitive people, and sometimes a set can be a very cold environment or a very harsh environment. But you don't want your actors to suffer because of the stress in the set. You want them to be in a bubble. So I go out of my way to kind of really channel, the right kind of energy with my actor. And it has my own experience as an actor helps me direct an actor because I can understand what it is that they need in terms of how they have to prepare, or what is it that they need to understand a little bit more about the character, some more context, because I'm always watching them, so it's easy for me to kind of just point out certain things like posture or perhaps the way they're entering or exiting a scene. I work very closely with my actors. We rehearse a lot. We do mini workshops whenever it's possible, but I let them kind of really use their space. I don't restrict them. I'm not one of those directors who say, okay, in this shot it is you need to just move from here to here and say this line exactly like that. I'm not that kind of director. I first let them see, especially when I'm working with an experienced and intelligent actor. I let them interpret the scene and show it to me and see how it is, whether it works for me,
That's right.
and then we kind of work on the blocking. So my experience as an actor definitely helps me as a director.
Right.
Yeah.
So, how hard is it to come in the industry today? If some newcomer wants to come in as an actor or a director,
See, there are you have to look at it like this. Like, see, there is our concept of breaking into the industry are two things. One is you can actively work in the creative industry. You have a camera, you can have a bunch of friends with whom you can collaborate with, and you can make a short film. Now those are tools that weren't available 25 years ago, you know and you can publish it. You can be on Insta, you can be on YouTube. So there is nothing that's stopping you from being seen, and there's nothing that's stopping you from exploring your potential. Whereas earlier on, you would have to wait for somebody to give you that opportunity. So I think this generation is really blessed with the fact that they have the technology and a publishing platform or a broadcasting platform where they can exhibit their talent. And if you get lucky and if it gets viral or somebody notices you, it kind of also acts like a calling card. But when see breaking into the industry now, I feel like we it all begins with the kind of stories that we want to tell. If your aspiration is to be a superstar, a big star. Now those are always going to be those one in a million shots, and it's not going to happen to everyone. But potentially getting hired to work as an actor, especially when you have a little body of work to be able to showcase and maybe get some casting calls, it's much higher now because more stories are being told across different kinds of platforms. I mean, the streaming option was never there 25 years ago. Today, it's one of the options for people to see content, right? I hate the word content. I try to, I, I always try to kind of catch myself from saying that word, but stories are being seen across
right?
different platforms now. So there is an opportunity for you to kind of, there are more opportunities for technicians, for writers, for cinematographers, and for actors because there is a demand and a need for it. And you can supplement that by really self-producing your own work. I feel, back in the day, Tarantino was saying, if you want to make a film, just make a film, just pick up a camera and do it. Yeah, but you still needed some money to be able to kind of do that. But today, that adage of Tarantino applies more than ever. Like, there is no reason if you want to be a filmmaker, you want to be noticed as an actor, then there's absolutely nothing stopping you except your own drive, your own motivation, because your mobile camera can take care of everything for you. But yeah, I mean, it's you know to be that superstar or to be that huge big sort of sensation, that's always going to be a one in a million shot. So you have to be realistic about what your aspirations are, and you have to kind of uh, it is a process. And I think I'm a little worried about people. Ambition is great, but if you want instant success or you want to just kind of a mentality of why isn't it working out for me and why shouldn't it happen for me. You have to realize that it is a mixture of, yes, hard work and a lot of patience, but there is an element of luck, of being in the right place at the right time, being on top of the zeitgeist, maybe doing something that's relevant, that strikes a chord with the audiences. And not all of this can be pre-orchestrated or kind of thought of. They just kind of happen. It's just happenstance. So what's important is to persevere and to kind of really focus your energies on doing substantially good quality work. And if it doesn't happen in year one or year two, it might happen in year seven or year eight. You have to be kind of mentally and emotionally be ready for the long haul of what it takes to be a filmmaker or an actor. It is this long relationship that you're getting in with the art, with the craft, with the business. So I feel sometimes I feel like people seem to be in a rush and want instant fame. I know we live in a time where things just go viral and people become famous and they get brand endorsements, and before you know it, they're making more money than your dad or your grandfather. But that's for that limited period of time, and that fame really fizzles out after a long time,
Right.
after a short time. So one has to be careful about the kind of goals one sets about breaking into the industry. I think the thinking really should be about pushing yourself to be a part of quality stories, and when you are a part of projects which have a lot of heart, uh, you will see that your career actually, even if it's not instantly successful, it'll have a longer play. You know, so I believe in that long innings wala game where you continuously churn and kind of do the work of doing good quality work, and that is something that will sustain you over decades.
From civil services, I believe you wanted to get into civil services.
Yeah.
From studying and preparing for that to acting. So how easy was your journey to get into acting? So like we were just speaking about it right now, where you said anybody can take a phone and get viral, and we have more exposure today. And 25 years back, you guys didn't have much of exposure. So
Yeah.
how hard was it for you to come into this field?
Well, my I was focused on directing primarily. I wasn't
Right.
really focused on acting because I never, although I was interested in it, I also knew that I can't dance, I can't fight. I didn't have, I didn't have back in those days, especially the kind of qualities that you needed in a Indian film hero. You know, but I enjoyed acting. But my goal was to direct, and that was the singular goal that I was kind of after. The acting just happened because somebody was just not available for a role, and the director just asked me to take his place, and it kind of just started like that. So I did a role because nobody else was available, and I was anyway the AD on the set, and they just got me into some slightly better clothes and I just did the role. So it was completely by accident that acting kind of began. I was not super focused on it. I was interested in it. I wanted to do it, but I didn't think I really had the chops to kind of be an actor, because back in the day, I think what was expected of you as an actor also is very different. So yeah, I mean, I think so. Acting kind of just happened by accident. It wasn't planned. And when it did happen also, I didn't kind of pursue it because I was so laser focused on directing and writing and kind of setting up my own projects. So that kind of really took time. But I got lucky and there was a revival of interest in me several years later. And this sort of really is like another new chapter for me right now over the past few years, actually, of being an actor again.
Your mom used to take you every weekend to rent a VCR
Yeah.
back in the day.
Yes.
Can we know a little more about that, sir?
Yeah, I mean, cinema, that was the late 80s and the early 90s was really the era, or I would say, yeah, the mid 90s would be the era where uh, the video cassette industry kind of really took off. And suddenly, uh, Hollywood cinema from the West was more accessible. You didn't have to wait for that once in a blue moon release in an English theater back in the day. You wouldn't. I mean, otherwise you'd just rely on a blockbuster film to be released in India. The odd uh, Disney film or something that would come
Yes.
out. But with the advent of the video industry or the video business, suddenly the world kind of really opened up for a young person like me who was, the cinema from the West was what really spoke to me at that time. I wasn't really drawn to the cinema of that time, the Indian cinema of that time. It was not really something I was drawn to. But it was also like a portal for me to kind of go back and see the early works of actors like Amitabh and Chiranjeevi, because uh, by the time I was in school and ready to see films in theaters, some of their best movies had already done their theatrical run. So the video industry was really kind of like a portal to the past, and it really was a window to, just like how the internet is right now.
Right.
It was a window to a world out there, and I had a ball because we are we were like, I think, as like any middle class household, when you have a video player at home, every weekend becomes an event. See, cinema wasn't that's when cinema really became a sort of a consumable. Like, right today we are consuming it at the rate of like bits per second, like at
Right.
the click of a finger. Back then you would at least take the effort to go to a video library and pick a tape, and then you had a day or two to return it back, otherwise it's just too expensive to
Yeah.
keep it on. So you had a window of time in which you would pick a movie. And I come from a very multicultural household. My mom grew up here in Hyderabad, my dad's from Kerala, and I kind of grew up here. So I wanted to watch Western cinema from the West. My mom was a Bollywood buff; she still is. My dad was a Malayalam film buff. So we'd end up with three different kinds of movies every weekend that we'd watch as a family. So that experience is fantastic because before I went to college, and before film screenings and stuff was something that I could actually kind of be a part of. The video time, the video sort of generation put you in touch with some really alternative and weird cinema coming from the West. Not the big blockbusters. It would be some franchise films like the Herbie Carr films, or some weird Revenge of the Killer Tomatoes, or some weird Dom College movie,
Right.
or I'd pick any kind of film that gave you a slice of Americana, or I wouldn't pick like the big blockbusters, because that would anyway be available in
The
theaters.
theaters.
So yeah, it is a terrific time, and one feels a little nostalgic about how we consume media. Like right now, you're faced with this buffet every day, every single day, that the sight of the buffet is enough for you to kind of lose your appetite. You just don't want to keep getting up from your table every time and fill your plate with all kinds of
Yes.
stuff. You just want to have your toast and get done with it. So yeah, one wishes that cinema wasn't consumed in such an en masse sort of a way. Um but then this is the times we are in, so can't help it. Yeah.
No offense to no filmmakers, but so I don't know why I still like the olden movies more than today's movies. I feel it's too commercialized today. Yes, I love the cameras, the new cameras are coming in. I love the way they're doing lighting, the VFX, and all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
But there's some charm about the olden movies
Hmm.
which we are losing today. Do you feel the same or
Good cinema is also being made now. It's just that we don't, not a lot of people get to see it. A lot of indie films, a lot of real heartland films, and films made with a lot of originality, unfortunately, don't get distribution. You just can't compete in the theater space, because want to fill their screens with big names and big stars, and it is show business at the end of the day. So alternative and alternative cinema is still being made. In fact, a lot of it is being made, and a lot of it is being sent to festivals, and some of them sort of trickle down into streaming platforms. But not everything is available for audiences to watch. Any kind of media that is out there is a reflection of the consumer's mentality. But I also feel like what I've also seen is that this same generation is willing to not back hackneyed commercial content also. If they feel like this is some gisapita same stuff that I've seen before, they are rejecting it. So there are, while sure there are those big blockbusters and popcorn films, there are enough cases of these big blockbuster films just crashing at the box office because the audiences have just rejected it. They're saturated with the way maybe a star is being presented in the same way, or they're not taking the storytelling that seriously. That's also because our audiences are now exposed more to cinema from around the world, and their tastes have also evolved. And so when they come to a theater and see something that's absolutely meaningless, or if it doesn't mean anything to them, they don't, no matter how big the film might be, they're rejecting it. So that's also there. So I think, like any market, between the buyer and the seller, the provider, the demand and supply, I think somewhere people are going to realize that audiences are actually, people think, and I don't believe, when people say audiences want this. I think the audiences are far more evolved than what I think the industry thinks they are. I think they are far more evolved. They want to watch more stories which are path breaking and, pushing the envelope. It's just that not everybody is making the decision to make those kind of films. So yeah, I mean, I think it is a crowded marketplace, and right now what we get to see are only the big sort of masala films. But you can take heart from the fact that I think more indie films are being made than ever before, because people have been able to kind of there are resources, and there are companies willing to invest in alternative content. I'm the kind of guy who looks at, a glass of water, like thinking like a half filled glass of water is like it's half filled. I think we'll get there. Uh, I don't think it's all doom and bad days or anything like that. I'm actually quite optimistic that, the industry will turn around, and you will see some great cinema coming away eventually.
So, what do you feel about OTT? Like for me, growing up, going to the movies was the best time. At every weekend, my parents used to take me to the movies, Friday night show, Thursdays or
Yeah.
Saturday nights, right? And today it's just that we don't want to go there anymore. Just let's turn on the TV. It's NES out here. Why go to the theater and watch it?
Yeah.
Right? But like, don't you think the OTT is also affecting it, sir? The cinemas.
There is a bit of good and bad in everything that's happening here. I mean, one way to look at it is the OTT and the streaming platforms are giving opportunities to filmmakers and stories which otherwise would not be told, which would not be produced, which would not even be seen. And there's an argument to be made that, these kind of stories perhaps won't play on the big screen. So what I see is that there is a bigger divide between the kind of stories that are being played on the big screen. So they might be event films or films that uh, are connecting with the zeitgeist. So people are, willing to come to the theater to watch it as an event. Um, and there has to be, and it need not be just a big film. It can be a medium budget film also that can draw audiences to theaters. Maybe there's something about the marketing, or something about the story that compels them to want to view that in the big theater. The OTTs, on the other hand, see, I understand. Like, when you are given an alternative, stay back home and watch a film, you're going to pick the easier
Right.
alternative. Um, and what do we? I mean, we'll have to dive into consumer behavior and stuff like that. The thing is, the business is the one which is offering them that choice. I think if we are a little smarter about it, there should be ways in which we should be able to plan theatrical releases with a very large window of time before it is available on
on OTT.
streaming. Because I think right now the windows are really, really short. Like a good 30 days into the theatrical release, people
In fact, even
uh,
Pushpa 2, sir, it just came out on Netflix.
came out in the first week of December, and it came out in streaming about 2 or 3 months later. 2 months later. So yes, I mean that 2 month window. I think that window of time that you give to a big theatrical release has to be larger. You know, it can't be as small as this. But then, who are we to say that? You know, I mean, see, ultimately, the producer is the one who's put in staked his money, and he's going to have to make a choice. So we are living in these very sort of turbulent times. I think there's a kind of correction that will eventually happen. So these tectonic shifts that are happening in the exhibition broadcast kind of a space, and there's also a clutter in the OTT space. Also, there are so many streaming platforms. OTT is also not making it easier for us to watch because we don't know what it is that you want to watch. You
Right.
literally don't know. You can't make your mind up. You can spend the whole weekend just deciding what it is that you want to watch. So I think this is a period of correction, and I think there will be slightly alternative consumer behavior over a period of time, and I think even the market will react to that, and hopefully, uh, there will be some uniformity. I'm optimistic about it. It is a little hectic right now. Um, but like I said, there are goods and bads. Like there is some tremendous stuff which is being discovered on OTT, and those people are going on to becoming big stars and landing huge projects, and then they then kind of then graduate into the theatrical space. So it's all like very inverse, and it's there are no more formulas being written here. Anything can kind of happen. I think we're going through a period of correction, which will last, I think, for a couple of years before the market itself kind of stabilizes, and even the consumer is now gonna, you know, you we they are see the cinephile is always going to make that effort to go to a theater to watch a film because he wants to have that collective experience of sharing it with a bunch of other people in a dark theater. So there is maybe it takes a certain kind of cinema for that, or it takes a certain kind of cinephile for that. I think, see, back in the day too, when during the video era, there was a whole lot of gripe about a lot of films being available on video while it was still playing in theaters. So our industry has always faced these constant pushes and pulls in every direction. That's because I can only think that it's because it is a thriving economy, and there is money to be made, and there are avenues. Uh, but yes, I mean, I understand why why our mindsets are kind of changing about the way we consume media. See, when you're programmed to kind of hold your phone in your hand and just flick the screen, I don't think you're going to place a lot of value to what it is that you're watching. So there is my fear that that kind of thinking is translated even to cinema. Where suddenly the value for that product is not as much because it's available on your device. But I'm hoping and I'm optimistic that things will change.
Because people do watch movies on their phones too.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Primarily
especially when
on
you
their
fly
phones.
domestic,
Yeah,
like so many of them just download it
yeah, yeah,
on from their OTT
yeah,
platform
yeah.
and watch it. I mean, I hope theaters don't die ever. We love going to theaters
Yes,
and
yes.
watching it.
I don't think theaters are going to go anywhere. I think we have to find that middle ground where between the expenses of going to a theater. I think ticket prices in Hyderabad are reasonable. There's not something to complain about. I think in Bombay, I think that's an issue.
Bombay and Delhi are
Yeah, yeah,
unbelievably
yeah.
high.
But compared to that, in Telangana and Andhra, it's far more
Yeah,
reasonable,
it's much more affordable,
much
sir.
more
Yeah.
affordable. But all the other extras that go along with it are obviously quite pricey and maybe out of the reach of, and it is out of the reach of an average middle class household because see, if you have a budget of 2 grand, Anyway, just you blow it on one film, you're kind of done with your entertainment budget for that month, you
Sure.
know. So he's not going to come back and consume another film in a theater. So somewhere we have to find it's a price sensitive market, and you have to be able to figure out a way where we can distribute films in theaters at a price that matches what the consumer wants to spend. I think we'll get there,
But the good
hopefully.
things are we still have those old theaters running.
Yeah,
Like, oh, I still go to Brahma Rama Malika Arjun.
yeah,
I love their sound quality. I
right.
love the whole feel of these guys throwing papers,
Yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah.
love those popcorn in those plastic bags.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
yes, it is still reasonable, but
Yeah,
yes, as you told, it's a
yeah,
different market,
yeah.
and
There's a film out every week, and I think it is really up to us to kind of where we might change audiences' perception or decision to go watch a film in a theater is when we start telling stories that push the envelope or telling more alternative stories. You know, if it is your routine run of the mill, the audience is going to think, you know what, I don't need to check this out in the theater right now. I'd rather sit back. So it is up to the provider now to kind of really make that decision and kind of push himself to kind of create alternative storytelling and alternative universes, or or even challenge actors to kind of do something that they haven't done before. Right? There should be more focus on variety, more focus on authentic storytelling. And I think when that gradually happens, because if you look at it, the theatre market in Kerala is quite healthy because there is a lot of variety that comes out every Friday, you know. So there is a reason for an audience to kind of really invest in that time to be like, okay, you know what, I can watch maybe two films a month. So I think if we offer something unique to our audiences, we have to. That's when their decision to go to the theaters or not going to that will change,
yeah.
you know.
What's your favorite genre, sir?
I don't think I have one favorite genre because even as a director, I've always kind of jumped genres. You know, anything from a good drama to a great adventure to an interesting sci-fi. I'm a cinephile at the end of the day. So a great slapstick, silly comedy, rom-com. I love cinema. So for me, I'm not very genre specific. I can watch films across any genre. I like films across many genres. But I think primarily I would say I'm drawn to good human dramas.
What's your favorite movie, sir?
Oh, that's a very difficult question to answer because you're talking about so many masters and masters of cinema, and so many epic films that you've watched over the years, films that have influenced you as a child, as as a young man, and films now that continue to blow your mind. So it's like such a big list, but
Okay, one film that stuck with you from your
for me,
childhood.
like I think I would look at it like this. I mean, the early films of Steven Spielberg uh, really connected deeply with me. So, Jaws and E.T. and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Films like that really kind of captivated me as a young child. So I'm a huge Spielberg fan. But when I grew up a little bit more in college, one discovers Satyajit Ray and Potter Panchali and Aparijito, and you kind of your sensibilities are a little more, deeper. Your tastes get a little more refined. And today too, like I mean, I can watch some wonderful cinema from Malayalam, which is just kind of blows your mind. So there is no top 10 favorite list. I can't say, but I've had many cherished experiences over the years watching cinema. But a big fanboy of Steven Spielberg. I think that's been a constant for me.
Or any movie which you watched as growing up or in your college days where you were like, I want to make a movie like that, or I want to make something different than that.
I think E.T.
E.T.
E.T. was very influential. And then several years later, you see Stranger Things, and you see a lot of
Yes.
that being mirrored in Stranger Things. That was created by J.J. Abrams, also, who's been a big fanboy of Spielberg. So They were these early sort of child adventure, Stand By Me, these where children were at the center of those storytelling, and they would be like deep, highly effective pieces of work. I mean, they're fantastical, but something about capturing stories and emotions through a child's eye. I think that's been a pattern for me. I've kind of connected with those kind of films a lot
Nice.
more.
They say a Friday can make an actor or break an actor.
Huh.
What's your mindset before a movie release? What's it like? I know you did say you're optimistic, but you will have some like tension or your
Yeah.
nervousness.
Yes. I mean, I think it's very common for us, for anyone to be apprehensive and nervous about uh, a Friday release. I mean, it's human nature. I mean, you're sharing something that you've been working with so closely over such a long extended period of time, and you've been deeply invested in it, and so it matters a lot to you. And you are going through a range of emotions, from confidence to losing your confidence to being nervous to being like very courageous. It's a great leveler. The Friday is a great leveler. So you see some tremendous highs and accolades, and then you see crushing defeat and bad critical sort of bad criticism. I mean, uh, criticism about your film. So yeah, every time it happens, every Friday is. Sometimes I feel like it's a privilege to first of all work in the industry and kind of have something of yours coming out on a Friday. It's not. I think it's a privilege. It's a moment. Every project of yours is sort of like a bookmark in your life. It means something. It meant something, and you're sharing it with the world. And over a period of time, you kind of get a little philosophical about the whole thing. You you are a little more measured about whether it's going to fail or succeed. You are kind of able to balance it with uh, by not getting too emotionally sort of caught up. But yeah, it's easier said than done. Like any person, a mixture of apprehension and excitement.
Right. Also, like when your movie is releasing, you've put your heart and soul to it. When you hear criticism, does it affect you or do you shut it down?
It affects you. I mean, I think uh, the trick is not to let it bring you down. I think this criticism, criticism of two kinds. One can be when one can seem like a personal vicious attack, and you're like, where the hell is this guy coming from? But some criticism can give you great feedback, and you'll be like, oh my god, I never saw this. Oh, I didn't know I went wrong here, or maybe I wasn't speaking to my audiences or something like that. So some criticism can be very revealing. You learn something from it. But at the end of the day, you should be your own biggest critic. I mean, you have to really be truthful and honest to yourself. So, if something worked or didn't work, you should be able to analyze it yourself. And yeah, it's easier said than done to like tell yourself, okay, don't get caught up with a bad review. It is human nature. Everyone, you're human after all, and it will affect you. But you have to kind of put it behind you and kind of shake it all off, and look at the little rewards, or look at the good reviews too, and feel good about that too. It can't always be that bad, and look at the bright side of things. And then at certain point of time, you kind of have to kind of be pragmatic and be like, okay, what did I learn from this experience? Learned? Have I grown as a filmmaker? There are two kinds of filmmakers. One who plays safe. So the guy who's generally playing safe, I don't know how excited he's going to be about something succeeding, because it's worked before too.
Right.
So if anything, he's going to be like, yeah, this worked and this worked. But there's going to be a time limit on that. But somebody who's taking risks every time. So with my directing career, I've always taken risks. I've never taken the easy way out. I've always gone for the riskier, more uh, hard to do kind of subjects, or things which genres which have not exactly have a great history in the box office and stuff like that. because I'm challenged by those stories and those stories excite me. So when they don't work, the only heart you can take from it is, you know what? At the end of the day, I tried to do something which was like I was pushing the envelope. I was trying to break a pattern, or trying to do something original. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of takebacks from it. Every person's personality is different, but we live in an age and time and a lot of hate and a lot of negativity. Even if you put up a bad profile picture, somebody has a criticism to make. I mean, forget about making a film. So mental health and emotional health is something that everybody needs to be conscious about, and you need to know how to keep things at bay, like, and not let it affect you. And you should just stop getting too rabid about kind of checking
Social
online.
media.
Yeah.
A movie you can watch 100 times without getting bored.
I think for now I'll pick Jaws.
If not acting or directing, what would you be doing?
I I think I'd be a teacher.
Teacher.
Yeah.
One thing about Tollywood that no one knows.
I think our people are, very ambitious. Our makers are very ambitious. I think we take a lot of pride in being able to kind of tell stories to the world now. We are
Right.
happy about opening up those markets also. I think that we are also a very sensitive bunch of people, you know.
Right.
So people's opinions and stuff matter to, I think, a lot of us. And the Telugu industry, I would say the Telugu industry is perhaps the most welcoming space for a creative artist. There is no other industry, if you compare it to the other industries, other film industries in India, there is no other industry that has been more welcoming to talent from across India
Mhm.
and across the world than the Telugu industry. I feel like compared to the other industries who have kind of mostly landlocked themselves in terms of the talent that they work with, Telugu has always been very open uh, to working with actors and technicians from all over.
Right.
I think that kind of sets. I don't know if people know that about the industry, that it really is the meeting ground for a lot of creative talent.
One actor or director you'd love to work with.
I Amitabh Bachchan, because I kind of grew up idolizing him. So yeah,
A talent you have that no one knows, your secret talent.
my secret talent. Mm, I think I should keep that a secret, because if I do tell the world what that talent is, then that superpower will be lost.
What do you think is the most overused dialogue in Telugu industry?
Oh gosh, Ray! Just that word, Ray.
What difference do you see between the North and South industry, like Bollywood, Tollywood, or
Well, films are made pretty much the same way across the north and the south. Perhaps, mm, I think we start on time.
right?
Like, we start pretty much first thing in the morning. In Bombay, I realized that your first shot can be after lunch. I mean, I don't know why that is, but that's been my experience. Bombay seems to, yeah, it's certain productions. Actually, it varies from production to production, but in some productions, it seems like people have a lot of time to get down to kind of work. But in the south, we are like on the clock. Like, from the time you're on the set, you're on the clock. Yeah,
A superpower you wish you had?
invisibility cloak will be great. It'll just get you to places.
Right. So, how do you deal with people recognizing you, like the paparazzi, or you know,
Paparazzi doesn't recognize me. We don't have much of a pap culture here, but I
and
enjoy it because, see, for an actor, to walk and just walk on the road, and a stranger just meets you, something about you makes them smile, or maybe you're making their day, or they want a selfie. I'm more than happy to do it because it brightens my day too, brightens his day too,
right,
and it's to be validated, or to be told that you're loved or liked, to have an absolute stranger come up to you with a smile saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed watching you in that role," and shake hands. And if you ever feel a little low, I mean, and if you feel like purposeless, then there is they, that validation gives you every reason to kind of get on with your work and feel kind of uh, more confident about what you're doing. So I love it.
Kerala or Hyderabad?
Hyderabad, because it's been home. Kerala for its wonderful food, beautiful landscape, and my ancestral home. But at the end of the day, Hyderabad is where my heart beats. I can't think of staying anywhere else.
Can you tell us a little bit about the differences between working in analog and digital?
Yeah, I mean there are so many differences. I did come from an analog generation. My first film, which I shot, which I directed, was made on film. So film uh, forces you, or when you're working with film, you're automatically more disciplined because you just don't want to waste the footage that you have. A roll of film is really expensive, so you have to be really strategic about your blocking, and there is a certain style in which you'll go about shooting a scene, blocking a scene. You have to be a little bit more precise, in fact very precise and accurate about the choices that you make. With digital, you have that little bit of leverage to try this and try that and try it one more time and try it 100 more times, which is always not a great thing. So I try to bring an analog mindset even when I'm working digitally. So I do a lot of rehearsals offline before I even roll the camera, so that when I'm rolling the camera, I'm not actually wasting time. So the biggest difference is your approach to the craft. In analog, you tend to be more precise and you want to really articulate exactly what it is that you want to do. But with digital, I kind of people can get into the bad habit of, let's try this, let's wing that, let's do this. Gives you too many options. I like the fact that analog doesn't give you too many options, which I think is, it's good for clarity of thought. Yeah.
So, would you say you prefer working with analog?
I love working with analog, especially when it comes to film, because there is something about the way the light interacts with a film negative, and there's something about the way that projection of light happens on a big screen. There is something about the quality of the image, which I don't think digital comes anywhere close to. Uh, and it still is an ambition of mine to go back and make a film, maybe a small indie film. Yeah, there is some beauty. There is some beauty to the image for sure, which I don't think digital captures. Digital tends to be really, comparatively, so much more colder and crisper and sharper. And I like my image to be a little, that film look that we talk about, that bounce of light, that dynamic range actually. Somehow that quality isn't replicated in digital cameras.
The removal of DVDs, has that somehow impacted the film industry in terms of what type of films are coming out?
Well, the DVDs used to be a significant revenue stream for a film. So, after a film's theatrical release, the next thing you'd look forward to is a collector's edition or a DVD of the film coming out. And DVD sales were a significant revenue generator for the producer. So that is something that's been kind of taken out completely. What you have now is your video on demand on streaming. I don't think the DVD industry particularly changed the industry. In fact, I remember that the DVD was an opportunity for you to see your film in higher definition and sharper sound, and that's how it was kind of marketed. But I do know that there was also an era where films were made direct to DVD. So, just like somehow films are being made now direct for streaming, there was a revenue stream of films that were made. These lowbrow B movies, direct to videos, what they were called, that would have a DVD release. So, kind of that kind of an industry propped up, but I don't think it had a big impact on the big cinema.
What's that one advice do you have for our viewers out there in terms if someone wants to join in as a director or an actor today? What's that one piece of advice you can give them?
It is an industry that is all welcoming. It welcomes people from all over the world, all strata of society. It is a non-discriminative kind of an industry. You don't need any special educational qualifications either. But I think if you are serious about a profession in cinema, I think it's important to understand its history and its legacy. I think that's very important. I think too much of the focus is on your own personal primary goal of breaking out into a star, that you don't really understand the medium first. Understand that it is a deeply collaborative artistic medium. There is no other artistic medium that asks for a deep collaboration between so many departments. There's a director who's the captain of the ship, but there's a costume designer, there's a production designer, there's an art director, there's a stunt coordinator, there are actors, there are lighting grips. I mean, it is a film where a whole bunch of people have to come together,
24 departments, if I'm
24
not
or
wrong.
more
Yes.
than that now. So, visual effects. So, it is a deeply collaborative kind of an art form. I understand that a lot of the rush or the glitz and the glamour is a part of the industry, and it's a great part of it. You should enjoy that too. The name and the fame, all good when it happens, but those shouldn't be the primary goals. They can be your goals, they can be your secondary goals, but I think your primary goal should be driven by a deeper artistic pursuit. Whether you're a writer director, it should be about telling stories that matter to you, that matter to the world around you, that is a reflection of the world around you. As an actor, it has to be about portraying characters that break stereotypes, that challenge conventions. If you are not driven as an artist, I don't think you will really deliver and do great things. I mean, the preset aspiration in this industry shouldn't be the name and the flame and the glamour attached to it. That is a byproduct of what happens. What should be your core focus is the artistic pursuit of what you're doing. Because if that singular artistic pursuit of honing your craft, working on your craft, developing yourself, if that isn't there, I don't think you really kind of get ahead in this place. Um, and that is something that I want every young person to kind of be mindful of. Why are you in this place? It's not sure. I mean, it's a great ride. It's a roller coaster, and there are lots of highs, but it's also an industry. For all the triumphs that you'll have, there will be a huge share of disappointments too. It's not a fairy tale. It is a challenge. So you have to kind of brace yourself. It's a long haul thing. Like I said earlier, filmmaking is not just a profession, it is a way of life, it is a certain mindset. So I feel like if you bring in these qualities, and that happens only when you take time to understand this medium even better, watch the great masters, understand great cinema, watch Chaplin, watch the people who came before you, you know, see what it is that they did, because it is in the history of cinema where, lies the foundation of why this art form kind of took over the world. So I think that is something that one has to constantly kind of remind themselves about and keep in their minds. So that would be my advice. Appreciate this medium for what it really is. Uh, the pursuit of creativity at the highest level. Yeah,
Thank you very much, sir.
cool.
It was a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you. This is
Thank
fun
you.
talking to you guys.
Yes. One last thing.
Yeah.
What's next for Anish, sir?
What's next? Well, there's a film that I've made, and it's a small. It's a film that I made with a bunch of friends. It's a feel good sort of chicken soup for the soul sort of a film. So it's in post production right now, and hopefully should be out sometime this year. So I'm working on that right now, and that's taking up all my time. That's where I'm rushing to after this.
We're looking
Yeah.
forward to it, sir, and we wish you all the very best for your
Thanks so
upcoming
much.
project. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you.